So this is a 2020 Ram 1500. When they changed the body style away from the 4th generation of the Cummins, this is going to be for the 5th generation of Cummins plus whatever generation of the 1500s. But I just want to give you all a little bit of advice on doing the dash on one of these. So as you can see, I have it for the most part back together, but if it's got a full center console, both seats will have to come out. They're pretty easy to get out. And then the center console has to come out. It's got bolt there, bolt back here, and same on the other side. And then you have to remove the lower cover underneath the steering column to remove this cover that sits right here on the corner. And then you have to remove that piece as well, and then center console can come out. But under the steering wheel, you have to remove fuse box. It's going to have 3 nuts. Remove those. You need to remove the parking brake release, which it's just this little cover right here. It's going to have 2 7mm screws. To get that out, I had to remove, there's a few screws along the side so I can pull this piece apart. That way you can get that little park brake release out of there, because it's pretty tight. It's got some steel brackets that are holding it on. Had to remove the shroud for the cluster plus this plastic piece. This had to come off. The ignition cover had to come off, and then the cover around your shift knob had to come off. There's going to be 4 screws holding this little shroud in, and that way you can pull this back and have enough room to see what you're working with. The steering wheel has to come off. You will have a hole here, same on the other side. If you take a small screwdriver, stick it in there, there's a spring. You just got to find the spring, feel for it. You have to push it in, and while pushing it in, kind of push in, wiggle around, and it'll eventually come out. That spring will release it off of the hooks that it's holding on to. Then you have to remove the ABS, or not the ABS, the airbag plugs. Those are a little bit of a tricky one to get. They have these little red plastic safety tabs on it. You need to take a pick and just pry them away from the plug. And once they're pried away, you'll be able to unplug it. It's got the I think it's a 24mm nut. Just zip that off, and the steering wheel should come right off. You shouldn't need a puller or anything like that. But this cover is what I wanted to talk about. So this shroud doesn't have any screws holding it. So what you do, once you get your airbag, you get your steering wheel off, you need to take not a pick, but like a tiny screwdriver, like a pocket screwdriver, and work at this seam. It has a bunch of little plastic clips that are holding it to this rear portion of the shroud. You're not going to break anything. Just kind of force it in there, and once you can get some space, you can get a little bit of a bigger screwdriver in it, and it will come off. There's a spot where the steering wheel connects to it. There's a spot where it looks like you can pry on it with a screwdriver. I say again, do not do that. You will destroy your clock spring. That is an easy way to end up costing yourself a couple $100 on a clock spring. Pry it apart from this seam. It'll come right off. And then there's 4 screws around the clock spring that hold the rear portion of the shroud on. Once you unscrew those, this whole thing will slide back. You'll be able to get to your plugs. And once you do that, then you're done with the plugs. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 nuts, plus this bracket that has to come off. You see where that bracket is? Right here. This whole bracket has to come off. It's 1 nut and then a screw right here. And then you'll be able to drop your steering column down. You won't be able to remove it. I was not able to remove it. I just had to set it down and let it chill right here, pull the dash, do all the things, and then put it back together, just lifted it right back up. For your bolts on top for the dash, you have this plastic cover. This whole thing pops right out. It's a bunch of those lock-in clips. Just pry at the edge, and slowly you'll be able to pop every one of them out. And then 1, 2, 3 bolts right here, and then 1 plug going up into your A pillar, remove that cover. It's just 2 bolts. Unplug that, kind of tuck it away under the airbag. Same thing on the other side. It's got 2 bolts, and then all of those plugs, just unplug them. There's one harness right here. Don't worry about undoing it. You'd have to get into your airbag module and stuff like that. But if you just leave that there, unhook everything else, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 more bolts. Just set the whole dash on a pillow or something. Let it lay on its face. Removing the glove boxes, you got a couple different screws. You need to remove the vent on the other side. There's one screw that you'll have to get to from the other side of the dash. And then remove your glove box. It's got that I guess the assist cable. Just remove it. It's real easy. Shouldn't need any explanation. Squeeze the tabs. Glove box will come down. You can unhook it, and then you'll just have a couple of bolts and stuff, or a couple of screws. You'll be able to remove both the lower and the upper dash. And that's it on that side. It's pretty straightforward. These trim pieces just pop right in. They don't have screws or nothing. Just pull on them, they'll come out. And if you're like me doing a heater core, you got to remove the whole dash. Underneath this windshield wiper shroud, there are 2 bolts. There's one about right here, and there's one right there. Use a hammer or something, pry it up just enough, and if you have a long extension, you can do like a paper towel on the end of it, a magnetic socket, and you can get to it. You'll be able to unscrew it, and you'll be able to remove it. You might have to use some pliers to grab the bolts, but there are bolts in there that are holding the dash on. And then everything else is pretty straightforward. You just have your heater core hoses, 2 clamps. You can remove the shroud off the top of the engine. It'll give you a lot more space to do so. And then the AC lines, just 1 nut. Make sure you drain the Freon, or you're going to have a friggin' mess. And then just look for, you'll see all these studs sticking out. For example, that one that the heater core hoses are clipped to, that one has a nut. Find the ones with nuts. That one, you see that shiny one right there? It's got a nut. And there's a couple there, and then hiding up right there, right above the AC lines. That's all. And then you have like 1 bolt inside for the heater core that you have to remove. But you'll see that if you go that deep. But other than that, that's about it on removing that shroud right here, or your head unit. It's just 2 screws on the top, and just slowly work around it. The rest of it will pop off. It doesn't have any screws other than the 2 on the top. And that whole thing will come down. You'll be able to take all your plugs out, and then you'll have room to get the center console out. But I'm hoping I covered everything. It's unfortunate that there aren't any videos online telling you how to do this or showing you. It's pretty much just people trying to figure it out themselves. And then this piece will have to come off for you to get to the screws for the glove box. It's got no screws. It just pops right off. So just pull on it, it'll come off. And then this, once you have this side cover off, again, these side covers just pop right off. It's got plastic clips in it. You can get your hand behind this vent instead of pulling on your fins and stuff, potentially breaking it. You can push that out, and then you'll be able to access the screw to the upper glove box. So I think I covered everything. Good luck.